Hello there. This is the Story Development Journal number 2 for the Hamptons Sniper. The first one, it was basically introduction to the really the project, why I was doing the project, why I was doing live streams about it. Um, and now we're going to go into my process for actually developing the story. Um, and I'm sure some of the people watching this are writing stories themselves, and they want to sort of get a sense of how as a professional, develop stories so you can apply it to your own world. And then other people might just be interested in the subject matter. Everybody's welcome, and I appreciate everybody being here. Um, but I'll try to address both, like what just what I think is most interesting to me as a story for a big audience, but also some points for the writers out there too. Um, so quickly for the writers out there, these early stages are really important. The couple scripts that I've written that really didn't go anywhere, either they stopped maybe at the treatment phase, or maybe I even got all the way to a screenplay and didn't do very well around town. Um, they were all identified, like, if I took a closer look and felt a little more deeply at like the premise stage, um, it was I could have, in a sense, I could have known, right? And that's what I do as a coach for other writers. I kind of say, look, show me in one sentence what you're working with, and I've got a pretty good approximation of what that 100-page screenplay version of it is. So what that means is when you're developing a new story, you have to get really good at like like understanding a seed of an idea and what it really speaks to in you, right? So for me in particular, um, it's this idea about this small town um, police chief who needs to protect his town from this sniper who's killing these rich people. And this takes place in the Hamptons, where I grew up as a local. So it taps into feelings that I had as a blue collar kid in a famous town that has a very strange sense of opulence and sort of, you know, like for people that live there year round, it feels in a way like it could be sort of a hick town in any place in America, maybe a lot of places in the world. And yet you've got like Steven Spielberg living there, and these celebrities around, and then the summer the population sort of explodes. So anyway, so it's a and then the locals have very strong feelings towards the people that come out there um, part time, and that makes for a pretty interesting dynamic and setting. So in this world, I'm drawn to tell this redemption story, and I felt like those elements lend themselves pretty similarly to Jaws in a way. So Jaws is set in Amity Island, which is um, it's kind of like could be maybe the Hamptons or whatever, or maybe like Martha's Vineyard or something like that. Anyways, so as I'm developing it, my first step was, oh, this is kind of like Jaws with a sniper, right? I was like, okay, so that was my starting point. So I went and I used my own 9-step process, and I basically did a log line and sort of expanded it out and got into several different steps of outlining what's there. And then I worked on a different project for a while, and I'm now coming back to this one, and I'm realizing that then I go back and I rework those steps. I'm coming back to the log line. So the last time I did one of these streams, um, I said that ultimately the sniper turns out to be this guy's childhood rival, um, and I've changed that word to bully. Uh, and you're talking about one swapping out one word, but it's a loaded difference. And I feel like that, at least for now, again, I might change it again, who knows how many times, but like for now, I made that change because I feel like it's significant in that it's a redemption story. So, so he goes from not believing in himself to fully believing in himself. And it's significant enough to be able to stop a sniper in a small town. But there's also this element of not only is he stopping any old sniper, it's this bully that's been living in his head since like, seventh grade. And so it's there's that psychological component, which is what I'm most drawn to. So, and that awareness of what you're most drawn to tell in those elements, is what's really going to make a story personal for you. So anyway, I went through my process and basically, I don't know, I probably spent a month or two kind of messing with it, playing with it, having fun with it, and got to like an outline stage. Now I'm going back and I'm messing with it again, reworking the log line, reworking the elements. And what I'm realizing, I'm at a point where with this sort of crime thriller, I know that I want to tell a redemption story. I know sort of some of the elements, but what I'm realizing is I'm not clear enough about what's the meat of the story. And there's really kind of two options with crime thriller. You're looking at cat and mouse, where the detective character knows who it is, and they're kind of coming after him, and it's either literally could be a visual action sequence, it could be there's this sort of this chasing thing or that sort of thing, or there's mystery, where you're like they don't know who the heck it is, and then they need to follow the pattern of the killings to reveal the clues, right? And then you go, okay, so that's kind of what is already out there, and then like, what do I want to do? And the thing is I'm not a huge fan of mystery. I'm interested a little bit, but not a lot. So, and then cat and mouse I like, but cat and mouse is more about tension and action, and I think I want my third act to be a cat and mouse sequence. But I think I want mystery, my own type of mystery, in the beginning. And what I also am interested in is drama and relationships, right? And talking about the relationships and the psychology of people in my hometown. Like that's what I'm really deeply drawn to. And then my own psychology, right? So for the writers out there, this is a good model for how you guys can come up with something that's both commercial and personal. You kind of analyze other movies that you like. You take the pieces of it. Oh, I like this, but more of that. You know about what you are most drawn to as a human being, the challenges that you faced, and then you put it together. So specifically with this cat and mouse and mystery thing, I'm at a place where I'm kind of going, okay, well, I know that the cat and mouse is probably going to be for the third act. What is going to be the engine driving the middle? I think that has to be mystery, but I'm not all that drawn to mystery, right? So how do I deal with that? And one of the reasons why I'm not drawn to it, which is again is instructive for the writers out there for your own thing, is like I generally am drawn to crime thriller. I'm drawn to drama and then crime thriller. But like I'm not into like classic noir. I appreciate it for what it is. It's fine, but it doesn't speak to me. Like Chinatown or all the sort of noir stuff. What's interesting about noir, or Blake Snyder would call it the whodunit genre, is it's it's a detective character of some sort digging into this mystery of themselves, which is great. I love personal growth. I'm all about it. Those symbols, the tiny the tones and the colors that are in most noir stuff doesn't really it doesn't feel like my own sort of personal growth exploration. But when you look at something like Mayor of Easttown, which is that really does speak to me. I love that series, and you've got the same thing. This detective trying to solve a case, but it's great performances. It's you're looking for that balance of drama and thriller, and that's the style that really speaks to me. It's not like stylish, black and white or really dark. Like if you look at like Seven or something, I was like, I don't know about that, but that's great for what it is, but it's a little more stylized than what speaks to me. So you got to go with what speaks to you. So Mare of Easttown, which those colors are like bluish, and it just feels like a cold East Coast place, and they're dealing with like blue collar stuff. Like that's kind of where my voice. That's where my sort of superpower and my interest comes, right? So then, but I need some sort of mystery because this guy's, the movie opens up, somebody gets sniped on the beach in the summertime in East Hampton, and then the sheriff's like, the town police chief has to deal with it, and he's overwhelmed because he feels so much self-doubt, and he's like, how am I going to do this? So, and it's the redemption arc is about him getting sort of evidence of his transformation from being a doubtful person, very, very sweet, amiable guy, but super doubtful, to like believing in himself, and then ultimately facing down this bully that's been living in his head since he was like 7th grade. So, but what does he what happens in the middle? To what extent is it cat and mouse? To what extent is it like mystery and undiscovering clues? The answer to that is, what do I care most about? So I definitely need this element of I don't probably need this element of mystery. So if I think about it in a mystery, there's three, you could think about it in three different options. One is many suspects, like Glass Onion or whatever. There's, oh, who done it, right? That's a classic thing. Those are fun, and I get them, but they're not really, it's too heady for me. I don't feel that as much, right? That's on one side, many suspects, 6, 5, whatever. The other way, which deeply speaks to me, is like Heat, right? Michael Mann's film, Heat. Pacino knows it's De Niro, and De Niro knows he's getting chased by Pacino. And you have this amazing, amazing scene at the end when they actually sit at the same table and they realize they're kind of the same person. The cop and the criminal is really the kind of the same person. And it's, to me, that makes my heart sing, right? It's really, so it's not, there's a bit of a mystery in terms of like, how's he gonna, but it's mostly cat and mouse and character work. So that's really, that makes my heart sing. But with this particular story, I've also had this other element that came up, and it's, and that other element was his best friend, because I've always been a super competitive person too. And so you have this beautiful dramatic irony is if the sheriff's suspecting his best friend, right, now what's he going to do? And that was actually my original, the original outline that I wrote. It was like, there's a sniper, he's got to figure it out, and all of a sudden he's more and more suspecting it's his best friend, and now he's got to confront him. But I was more deeply called to tell a redemption story. So for the writers out there, this is a really crucial crossroads, because if you get it wrong, you end up spending months, if not years, on something where you don't have a deep harmony between the elements, right? So I'm slowing down, being very careful about how I'm going to do this, because the two options, so I definitely don't want to have many suspects. It's possible that I just have the one suspect, but it's also possible if I can allow it to be kind of two suspects. Like maybe he's like, oh my God, there's a sniper and he's dealing with the things. And like Jaws, he's dealing with the locals where he's like, let's just shut the town down, right? And make everybody safe. And the business owners are going, oh, no, we can't shut. This is how we make our money. Just like Jaws. They were like, look, you've got to keep the beaches open because we're going to go broke. So obviously we don't want to get shot, but we got to, so there's economic pressures. So he's going to be in, and he's a guy that's sort of, he bends too much. So he's going to be getting sort of pushed around in a way. From those local political pressures. And then I think, so what I'm thinking about now is it could be a two suspect movie, and then there's the love story too. And it's like, is it my best friend? Is this the effing guy that's doing this? Or is it this bully who I've thought about my whole life? And either one, it's not going to be cliche, whatever. It's going to be layered, because that's where my real superpower is anyway. I started as doing personal drama. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. So my next step in terms of, for the writers out there is I'm going to sort of mull it over. It helps for me to kind of talk about this publicly, to kind of feel, because when I speak to it, I feel different things, because, I don't know how many people are going to watch it or whatever, but the fact that it could be watched by a lot of people makes me sort of accountable to how I'm feeling and how I think I might be impacting the audience. And so it might just be this sort of complex dealing with this bully and how this bully's a real interesting person and more like Heat in that way. Or if I can allow this other part where he's kind of going, yeah, I think it's a bully. No, I think it might be my best friend. But I don't know if the part of me that's super competitive, because with the best friend thing, it just might be a different element. I don't know if I can harmonize those things. So that's where I'm at. And for the writers out there, it's okay to be in the swamp, to not know, and just to speak it and to kind of let the clarity kind of come. And then there's another part that's kind of swampy, is the element of the disparity of wealth out there. Like, the locals in some ways feel like the city people, they call them, are like intruders. They don't like them. everything gets busier and crowded, and just, you know, and a lot of times there's an entitlement that comes with from the judgment of the locals. And so, you know, you've almost got this extreme Robin Hood situation if there's, you know, wealthy people getting shot. So I'm not sure how I'm gonna bake that in either. But it's a powerful element, and I'm weighing the sense of how big that's going to be with the other elements, where it's going to come in. And so the last thing I'll say for today is, mostly for the writers out there, is you want to be really comfortable in the uncertainty. Like, I don't know the balance. I might completely strip away the best friend thing. It might maybe go back, and that the best friend thing might be the main thing, right? I don't have to decide right now. I speak to it, I think about it, I mull over it. I maybe write, I wrote a couple character descriptions. Oh, I know this guy. He's blah 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 blah. This other guy. So, and then I just feel it. And then what happens is they start kind of whispering to me and feeling it out, and then I start going, oh, yeah, that's great. And then, and then it starts coming together. But the last thing I'll say is, you want to get the concept, the premise really, really powerful. Personal, feels like something else, the same but different. And it's a harmony of elements that just explodes your heart, And from there, when you expand it out, it gets better. And you can, while you're sort of sorting out those elements and feeling which ones you most deeply want to tell, you can sketch out, like in my book, step 3 is like 5 sentences, the 5 major turning points: Act 1, Act 2A, midpoint turn, Act 2B, and Act 3. Like, sometimes while I'm kind of mulling this over, I'll kind of go, well, if it's going to be the best friend and the bully, how would that look? Pop, 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 5 sentences. And then I feel it out. And then I might go, okay, if it's just the bully and the complexity of it, more like the Heat version, how does that look? Pop, 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 pop. And I can kind of sketch that out. And then, I'll probably watch Heat again this week, which is not a bad thing to do. And I'll just kind of go, oh yeah, I love this. This is great. Nah, this is, not for me. But that's how you kind of let these things sort of come through you. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that gave you some value for both the writers out there and other people that are just interested in these elements. I certainly appreciate anybody who's watched this much of me rambling, sorting through my process. Yeah, sending you lots of love.